Former Razorback Brett Eibner has signed with the Miami Marlins. Marlins have had to make numerous signings after, 16, 17 players tested positive for coronavirus. They haven't played in over a week now. Eibner has not played in the majors since 2017. He'd been with the independent team in Sugar Land, Texas. They're called the Skeeters. He's a two-way player now, which, of course, he was at Arkansas, and he is again, and that is becoming a little bit more in vogue in Major League Baseball. All right, something to pay attention to. Conor OGara from Saturday Down South, our friend every Monday. Conor, how you doing today, man? What's up?
You know, I want to say on behalf of the state of Florida, just apologize for the Marlins. There's a lot to apologize in the state of Florida, but I feel like us Floridians are getting kind of lumped in with the, of course, that would happen in Florida. And I'd also just like to point out that closer to where I live here in Orlando is the NBA bubble, which is flourishing and looking like the single smartest professional sports organization right about now. So I just like to get that out there and make myself kind of disassociate myself with anything Marlin related.
Because you were doing your part in staying safe, right?
Of course. I mean, I'm in the easiest position, though, because I don't have kids. I have a wife we're both, in jobs that we like, where we can work from home. We don't necessarily, we're not like we're on the wrong side of 30 now, so we're not necessarily like, oh, we need to go out and do this, and this all the time. We are probably in the best possible spot to be safe and do all those things without the temptation of it. But, I mean, when you're a Miami Marlins player in Atlanta, I guess, all those temptations are just – Atlanta itself right now has just been dealing with kind of all of the temptation of coronavirus with the Lou Williams stuff at Magic City. But we don't have to deal with that is what I'm saying.
I've heard you refer to this wrong side of 30 again. So that makes me realize that the right side of 30 is the one that I've been on for the last 13 years. Are you still younger than 30? Because that's the wrong side of 30 right there.
No. So, yeah, I turned 30.
Oh, all right. You're doing well then. If you're older than 30, then you have great life experience. You have a lot to impart upon somebody like my co-host here, Matt Jenkins. That's the right side of 30, Conor. You got to change your perspective here.
Okay, this is a good point. And I turned 30 during the pandemic, like when we were 6 weeks into it or something like that. So it's about the weirdest 30th birthday that you could possibly have.
Yeah,
but
I'll give you that.
I'll take it. I like that. I'm going to rebrand it. The right side of 30 is officially the side that I'm on. I've always been on the right side of 30 because when I was in my 20s, I would say that, and so I'll go with that now. I like that.
That's right. Age before beauty, and definitely age equals wisdom. Ha ha ha. All right, you raise a really interesting point here, pointing out about the success of the NBA bubble, and I think the NHL so far, though it's just been a couple of days in, they've been successful too. Major League Baseball, they did build for contingencies, for positive tests and outbreaks. That's why they have these 60-player pools. But then again, you got a couple of teams here that haven't played in 4 days as far as the Cards are concerned and a week as far as the Marlins are concerned. So it certainly wasn't a perfect plan. And you and I have been open about the idea that what Major League Baseball is doing is sort of the same thing that college football is doing. Regionalized schedules, no bubble. You got to rely on the players and student athletes. Good, smart choices. You got to rely on the other people that they're being around. What do you think we can glean about the possible success or no success of college football from what's happened with baseball in the last week?
Well, let's be honest. They have less of a chance of success than the NBA, just because Major League Baseball and college football right now are just crossing their fingers and hoping for the best. Now, all of that is going to change in the next month when students actually get back on campus and players are forced to be in classrooms with students who don't have the same interests as them. And if you read the Washington Post story that highlighted the issues that were discussed during that meeting with SEC player representatives and administration and medical experts, one of the big things that was brought up was, look, what's going to happen when we have to go back to class? I think it was Mohamed Sanogo who said, the Ole Miss linebacker, who came out and was like, I have 4 classes I need to be there in person for, and they're not online. how are you going to be able to protect me when I need to be in that room because I need to be on campus playing football? And there are kids in there who might have gone out, might have gone to parties and bars and don't have access to the same resources. And they basically told them, like, look, just wear your mask and stay 6 feet away from them. It kind of feels like they could be doing more at this point. We saw the issues that were raised with the Pac-12 list of demands, and while I think some of those are a bit ambitious and it's a little bit more of a shoot-your-shot approach at this point, I do think that some of the safety concerns brought up are legitimate. And there needs to be – administrators need to accept the fact that college football players are not regular students. They've done so in so many other areas, and it feels like they need to make that concession in order for this thing to have any chance of working, because you can do all the things within your own facility to help that. But what's totally a wild card is the fact that you have these kids that are actually going to classes and they're being exposed to their classmates and stuff like that. And 18 to 22-year-olds have different sort of priorities. So I think it's right now you're looking at Major League Baseball and you're feeling like, yeah, college football could definitely follow that, where you have teams that have these big outbreaks and you have games that are canceled. But the good thing now is at least there's a plan in place to deal with it.
Speaking to Conor OGara here on Halftime, Conor, I want to ask you a little bit about the Pac-12 scenario, then we'll touch on the news from Friday of the SEC 10-game conference schedule. You mentioned some of it's ambitious, some of it is some good things that they bring up, some of it is ambitious, like you mentioned. Is there any realm of possibility that this could trickle down into the SEC? Because I think the one big difference that I've noticed between them is the SEC's already allowed players that if they want to opt out, they can, and their scholarship will be honored. Pac-12, to this point, to my knowledge, has not. Could any of, like, a sort of push like that the Pac-12 is doing make its way to the SEC?
I'll never say never because it's 2020, and I think predicting stuff in 2020 is pretty much anybody's guess at this point. But a couple things that need to be remembered with that was the one that you just brought up right there. The SEC already 2 weeks ago announced, look, if you want to opt out this season because of COVID-19 concerns, more than welcome to. Your scholarship will be honored. Not an issue whatsoever. The Pac-12 didn't even have that figured out yet. That was the very first thing that was listed on the list of demands in the Players Tribune article. That's a problem right there. If you're going to bring up safety concerns, yeah, that's an issue that definitely ignited the masses in the Pac-12 in terms of the players and stuff like that. But I do think it's worth noting that this thing took a while to put together. Pac-12 had hundreds of players behind this, and this was a movement that had been started over a month ago. The SEC doesn't necessarily have time on its side, and I understand that the season got pushed back. Start date is later. It's going to be September 26th. I feel like if something like this were to happen, I feel like it would need to happen now, and maybe that's a different set of circumstances. And there's more of just a general frustration with the Pac-12 when they haven't necessarily seen the benefits of the TV contracts in the same way that the SEC has, and they haven't even had a team in the playoffs since 2016. And Larry Scott has been pretty much incompetent as the Pac-12 commissioner, and he makes $5.3 million per year. So all the optics are bad for the Pac-12. Whereas in the SEC, I don't think they're as bad. I'll never rule out the possibility of players coming out and being like, hey, we need to do something. This is our opportunity. There are more people listening to players now than ever. That's why this movement came to exist in the first place, and that's why it covered such a different set of areas in terms of racial injustice and getting into safety concerns, long-term health, all those different things. And I get it, and I understand like why there's some frustration. I think it's a bit ambitious to expect all these things to actually happen, and I do think that there is more of a motivation in the SEC just because they've seen the merits, the fruits of their labor, so to speak, and they've seen it be rewarded in the NFL in a different way than the Pac-12 has. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I do think it's very interesting, and how this is going to be received from the Pac-12 administrators is a fascinating study, and it's going to tell a lot as to how this next decade is going to go with that relationship and that divide between players and college administrators.
Obviously, big news of the weekend, going 10-game conference only here in the SEC. You touched on it a second ago. It gets delayed until September 26th, or the start of the season, I should say. What are some takeaways, pros and cons that you kind of got from the announcement from the SEC?
I mean, if you want to go with just a positive spin, there's a lot. I mean, I think the fact that we're going to get 10 SEC games per team is great. How long have we been saying, get rid of the cupcake games, get rid of the cupcake games? Let's just have every game actually matter. That's what we're going to have this year. That's great. I like the fact that we could potentially see the addition of a matchup like Florida and Alabama that we wouldn't have otherwise gotten. That's great. That's positive. there are going to be ways in which we can kind of separate the pretenders from the contenders in a way that we haven't before. That's all well and good. I think the frustration are the obvious things. I'm going to miss watching LSU Texas. That matchup was great last year. It was awesome. It was one of the games of the year. I'm going to miss all these traditional non-conference rivalries that we look forward to, and that for so many SEC fans have become nostalgic for them, and it becomes such a big part of their fall every single year. But I'm sort of the mindset that we just need to embrace the weird at this point. If we're playing football at all, let's appreciate the fact that in November we're going to have some weird arguments with the college football playoff. But I do think that the SEC stands to benefit the most from it. There's a chance that the SEC is going to have 8 teams starting off in the top 25. It's at least probably going to be 7, assuming that Tennessee gets in there. It'd be 8 if Kentucky got in there as well, which Phil Steele at Kentucky in the top 25, that doesn't guarantee that everybody in the AP will. But if we have 8 teams or 7 from the SEC in the top 25, how in the world is that narrative going to change throughout the year? And how is the SEC not going to look like it has a gauntlet to crown a champion? By season's end, the playoff selection committee is going to select the SEC conference championship winner. How will it not? Meanwhile, if the Pac-12 does have football this year, when you haven't played in the playoffs since 2016, Pac-12 winner might be treated a little bit like a Group of 5 conference this year. That's kind of the general consensus that I feel right now going into this. Now, things can change, and who knows? Maybe we're going to be talking about whether or not a team that goes 7-1 deserves to be in over a team that goes 9-0. I don't know, because games can get canceled and all that. Nothing is set in stone right now, but I think that there were definitely at least some positives. And if you're looking at this with entirely glass half empty at this point, I'd say try and find the good in it, because there is definitely some good.
Well, here in Arkansas, people are a little nervous that they're going to be put up against, like Georgia and South Carolina, Florida, something like that. I don't think that would make any sense. And if I'm the scheduler for the SEC, and I forget the fellow's name, I don't see how you don't do cross-divisional placement scheduling based upon last year's final standings, if that's at least available, or if that game's already on the schedule, then you put the team that's just above one of those teams against them. It just doesn't make sense to me to give teams that were at the top of the conference standings a so-called cupcake theoretically, just to be random about it. I don't think you can be random with these 2 extra games you're scheduling. It should be a little bit like the way the NFL does their schedules.
Yeah, it could be, but I mean, let's also remember that when all this is figured out and all of this is settled, and who knows when that'll be, we're talking about 10 of 13 teams possible that every SEC team is going to face. They're going to face almost everyone. I mean, the Big 12 has a round robin every single year, and it's sort of nobody talks about scheduling in the Big 12. It doesn't really matter because everybody faces each other. 10 of the 13 teams that you're going to face in the SEC this year, it's going to be less of an argument than of who has the most favorable schedule than ever. And I think that's kind of a good thing. And I like the fact that we're going to be able to not necessarily wonder, did this team just kind of catch, the exact right schedule at the right time? And I think that, it's a bummer. It is an absolute bummer. And I feel bad for people like Sam Pittman and Eli Drinkwitz, who are coaching their first Power 5 program, and they have to rebuild. Let's call it what it is. And to have to rebuild after the offseason that's been is difficult enough in itself, with all the hurdles of just trying to figure out who you are as a head coach. And you've got a pandemic sort of standing in the way of everything that you do. And then to have to turn around and be like, oh, no, actually, you're not even going to get those cupcake games this year to sort of figure out who your guys are. You're just going to get to play all SEC competition. Good luck going 2-8. If you can do that, tip of the cap to you. I think I said this the other day. I think if Sam Pittman goes 3-7 with the schedule, he's going to have a legitimate shot to win SEC Coach of the Year. I think it's going to be that type of expectation for Arkansas. Obviously, a program that has one SEC win in the last 3 years. We need to remember all of these different things as we go into a year like this, especially for someone like Sam Pittman.
Yeah, agreed. I think you might say that about Coach of the Year, a little tongue-in-cheek, but I don't think you put tongue fully in cheek with a statement like that. Conor, always appreciate your time and your opinions. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good week.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Conor.
Got it. Hey, our summer of giveaways continuing at hitthatline.com, and this one is an Eno Hammock Sky Pod with a lounger hanging chair. It's being given away at hitthatline.com by Big Creek Trading Company up in Harrison. If you go to hitthatline.com, click the Win a Hammock link at the top of the page. All you got to do is enter your email, your name, and your zip code, and you are entered.
You can even eat nuts on that thing, too.
You could, your favorite nuts. And, oh, by the way, I thought a good second-place trophy.
You did?
Or gift or something for a second-place winner here would be a free pack of 3 Speedo bathing suits.
Ooh.
You think that would be good? We always have to have like a consolation winner, right?
How much would you pay to see me and Maddie T in a banana hammock like that?
I think I would have to be paid lots of money to see exactly that. 877-377-6963.